So, Code on Social Security. The Code on Social Security 2020 Comprehensive Study Notes. The Code on Social Security 2020 or SS Code consolidates, simplifies, and amends 9 central labor laws. This text based guide details its statutory provisions, structural changes, and operational mechanisms for UPSC EPFO examination. Statutory Amalgamation and Repeal Acts. The Code on Social Security 2020 replaces a fragmented system of sector-specific welfare laws with a unified legal framework. It completely integrates and repeals the following central pieces of legislation: the Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, previously managed retirement, pension, and deposit insurance funds for designated formal industries. Employees State Insurance Act 1948 regulated medical, sickness, maternity, and disability benefits through a distinct network of hospitals and dispensaries. Payment of Gratuity Act 1972 governed lump sum monetary payouts to workers completing a minimum term of continuous service. Maternity Benefit Act 1961 mandated paid leave timelines, nursing breaks, and crash requirements for female employees. Employees Compensation Act 1923 handled financial restitution for occupational injuries, diseases, or workplace fatalities. The Cine Workers Welfare Fund Act 1981 addressed specialized industry-specific medical and educational subsidies. The Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Cess Act 1996 managed tax collection from real estate and infrastructure projects to fund construction worker benefits. The Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008, an early legislative attempt to offer welfare guidelines to the informal sector, lacking strong financial mechanisms. The last one is the Employment Exchanges Compulsory Notification of Vacancies Act 1959, monitored the tracking, declaration, and notification of vacancies across industries. Second heading is Expanded Scope and Statutory Definition. The code changes the traditional definition of an employee by extending legal protections to alternative work models. It defines 3 distinct categories of workers to support comprehensive welfare delivery. Gig workers. A gig worker is an individual who participates in a work arrangement and earns from these activities outside of a traditional employer-employee relationship. This category includes freelance consultants, project-based contractors, and independent service providers who work without long-term employment contracts. Platform workers. A platform worker is someone engaged in an organization that uses an online platform or digital application to connect specific businesses or individuals to provide targeted services. This definition covers rideshare drivers, food delivery partners, and digital marketplace assistants whose work is managed by algorithmic platforms. Unorganized workers. An unorganized worker includes home-based workers, self-employed individuals, or casual wage earners in the informal sector. It also encompasses workers in organized enterprises who are not covered by standard statutory protections under traditional social security rules. Third is structural reorganization of regulatory bodies. Administration of Social Security is split into 2 primary operational branches under the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Central Board of Trustees (CBT). The Central Board of Trustees continues as a corporate entity with perpetual succession and a common seal. It manages the Employees Provident Fund (EPF), an Employees Pension Scheme (EPS), and Employees Deposit Linked Insurance Scheme (EDLI). Its tripartite composition balances representation among central and state authorities, employers' union and trade union delegates. The National Social Security Board. The National Social Security Board functions as a distinct advisory body alongside the CBT. It is tasked with designing, recommending, and monitoring targeted welfare initiatives, life insurance pools, and health options specifically for unorganized gig and platform workers. Transition to inspector cum facilitators. The code updates the traditional strictly punitive role of enforcement officers and compliance inspectors. These officials are now designated as inspectors cum facilitators. They are legally required to provide advisory compliance, guidance, and structural assistance to business owners before initiating formal legal prosecution or financial penalty proceedings. The standardized wage definition and the 50% rule. The code introduces a uniform definition of wages across all four labor codes to resolve ongoing litigation regarding how allowances are treated when calculating statutory deductions. The mechanism of the 50% rule. Wages are explicitly defined to include basic pay, dearness allowance, and retaining allowance. All other specific allowances such as house rent allowance, HRA, performance bonuses, and overtime pay or travel concessions are classified as exclusions. The code applies a strict limit if the total sum of these excluded allowances exceed 50% of employees' entire cost to company CTC remuneration package. The excess amount is automatically added back to the wage base. This adjusts the calculated wage floor to exactly 50% of the total compensation package. Operational consequences. Impact on retirement funds. Companies that previously kept basic pay low while inflating excluded allowances must increase their wage calculations. This adjustment raises monthly contributions toward provident funds and pensions. Impact on monthly net salary. Higher contributions to retirement savings mean workers may experience a reduction in monthly net take-home pay, balanced by an increase in their long-term retirement corpus. Funding Social Security for the gig and platform economy. The code sets up dedicated financial pipelines to fund welfare benefits for non-traditional work sectors. Aggregator contribution liabilities. Digital aggregators operating across industries like ride sharing, food delivery, logistics, and content marketplaces must contribute financially to the Social Security Fund for gig and platform workers. Financial caps and rates. The contribution rate is set between 1% and 2% of the aggregator's total annual turnover. The code includes a secondary restriction. This payment cannot exceed 5% of the total amount paid or payable to the gig or platform workers during that financial year. The registration system. To access and transfer benefits, workers must register using an authorized identification source such as Aadhaar, linked to central databases like the eShram portal. This allows the system to track individual contributions across different states and digital platforms. Legislative shifts, old versus new framework. The transition from individual acts to the unified code introduces several changes to timelines, eligibility rules, and enforcement procedures. Limitation period for inquiries. Under the legacy framework, Section 7A of the EPF Act allowed compliance officers to open financial inquiries without any statutory time limits, enabling audits of records dating back decades. The code establishes a strict 5-year limitation period for initiating inquiries into unpaid or underpaid dues. Gratuity eligibility terms. The legacy framework required 5 years of continuous service for an employee to qualify for gratuity. The code reduces this threshold to 1 year for working journalists and fixed term contract employees, matching their shorter contract cycles. Maternity protection rules. The code incorporates the provisions of the 1961 Act, maintaining 26 weeks of paid maternity leave for up to 2 surviving children. It also standardizes rules for crash facilities in establishments with 50 or more employees. Inspection procedures. Manual inspection schedules are replaced with a web-based randomized inspection assignment system. This change aims to minimize arbitrary officer discretion and introduces data-driven compliance checking. Implementation challenges and policy issues. Financial planning for small enterprises. Increasing minimum wage calculation base adds financial liabilities for small and medium enterprises (SMEs) with tighter profit margins. This has led to ongoing consultations regarding implementation timelines. Data verification for mobile labor forces. Tracking, collecting and managing fragmented contributions for workers who switch between multiple digital platforms requires real-time data sync between private platforms and government databases. Revision summary. Core mandate: shifting India's social security framework from an establishment-based model to a universal worker-centric system. EPFO scope: expanding from formal sector account management to overseeing a wider safety net that includes gig, platform, and unorganized sector workers. Key metrics: remember that 50% allowance cap rule, the 5-year limitation period for financial inquiries, and 1 to 2% turnover contribution rate for digital aggregators. And this is the end of our code on social security.